Okay, everyone, so you're really welcome today to one of our webinars for Biodiversity Week. My name is Claire Patton, probably been emailing you all, and I work on the biodiversity themes here in Green Schools. And today, this is our last of our series of webinars this week. So all week we've been celebrating Ireland's biodiversity with you. If you missed any of our previous webinars, you can watch them back on the event page. I'll pop a link to that in the chat box in a minute. So on Monday, we had some of the conservation rangers from our national parks speak about white-tailed eagles and bats. And then on Tuesday, we heard all about monitoring our biodiversity and the National Otter Survey, as well as the Dragonfly Survey. And yesterday, we had a really interesting webinar on invasive species that you can watch all of those back on the event page. And if anybody in your school couldn't make it today but wants to watch this webinar back, it will be available tomorrow as well. You can also check out our activity sheets on the webpage along with tomorrow's main event, which is instead of having a live webinar, we're going to have a series of draw along videos. So if you would like to learn how to draw a hedgehog, an otter, or a white-tailed eagle, you can follow along with Rob on that, and those are available in English or in Irish. So just a little bit of housekeeping for today. If you could all please keep your microphones on mute, but you can chat to us. You can use the chat box to ask or answer any questions. And as I said, this session is being recorded, but only video of the presenters will be taken. So you can keep your cameras on or off. It's up to you. They won't be featured in the video. And today's session is all about careers in biodiversity. So I'm sure lots of you are really interested in this area. Maybe you want to work in biodiversity in the future. So we've got three different guest speakers who are going to tell you about what they do as part of their job and how they got there. So the first speaker we're going to have is Meabh Boylan, the Kildare County Council Biodiversity Officer. Then we're going to go over to Elaine O'Riordan, in NUIG, going to talk about the Irish Hedgehog Survey, and then Jennifer McAree from Flynn Furney Environmental Consultants. So after each of our speakers presents, we will then have a Q&A. So you can put in questions as you have them to the chat, and we'll come back to them at the end, or you can save them all up and then ask them together. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and hand you over to Meabh. Over to you, Meabh.
Morning, everybody. Great to be here. Thanks a million, Claire, for having me here this morning. Can you see my slides yet?
Yep, we can.
Great. Okay. So yeah, as Claire said, my name is Meabh Boylan, and yesterday was actually my 1-year anniversary in this role as Biodiversity Officer. So I've been working as Biodiversity Officer in Kildare County Council for 1 year now, and overall it's a great job. So this week, as an example of what I do now, is we had our own Biodiversity Week event guide and activities all week celebrating biodiversity. So I helped to run some of those events and organize them, and coordinate others into a booklet. So we have lots of events going on around the county. So some fabulous art workshops for children in libraries, for example. There's a butterfly walk happening on Saturday morning out on the bogs in Lullymore. And there's a bat walk happening. There's been 2 bat walks actually this week in the evening times. So there's lots going on in Kildare for biodiversity. And my job is to make sure that people hear about those things and can take part. That's part of what my job is. My big job that I still haven't done yet, but I'm starting it at the moment, my big responsibility is to make a biodiversity action plan for the county of Kildare. So there was one made a long time ago. I don't know if you can see that. It's in the slideshow there in front of you as well. So there was a biodiversity action plan made for County Kildare a long time ago. And because there wasn't a biodiversity officer, there hasn't been another plan made. So my job is to make one, to start putting together a plan of action for the county council's work on biodiversity next year. Biodiversity has been looked after by the Heritage Officer in County Kildare for the last number of years. So the Heritage Officer looks at lots of different types of heritage, things like archaeology, lots of things to do with history and different buildings, and also natural heritage. So another word for biodiversity really is natural heritage. And that's, I suppose, all the nature and natural things around us. So there has been a plan, here it is, I'm going to keep the screen. But again, it's just a booklet, I suppose, highlighting all the things that the council, Kildare County Council, should be doing, the actions to take to protect heritage, including natural heritage or biodiversity. Another part of my role is to figure out what biodiversity we have here in the county of Kildare, and that helps us. If we know what we have, then we can see, if we check it again next year, the year after, we can see, are we getting more of those things or less of those things? So for example, with the barn owl, we've never actually done a barn owl survey in Kildare. So this year, over the next few months, Birdwatch Ireland are going to go around to all the old buildings in Kildare, and even old trees that might have hollows and spaces for nesting, and see how many barn owls are nesting in Kildare. So through my work, I've been able to fund that project or provide the money to pay people to do that work. So that's really exciting. Another example of the research that we've done before, or funded the research, is we have a County Kildare hedgerow survey. And that basically, again, we asked ecologists to come in and into Kildare and have a look at our hedges and see, are they in good condition or not so good condition? What types of trees are growing in them? Are there any flowers growing along the bottom of them? Are there many animals using them? And that information is really helpful, especially if we repeat that survey. So we did that survey in 2022, and it was brilliant because we actually had a survey done, I think it was 2004. So we were able to compare then and see, are our hedges getting stronger and better, or are we doing things that might be damaging them, and are there practices that we need to change? So being able to compare before and after, or over a number of years, the differences in our plant life and our animal life is really helpful for us to be able to know what things we need to be protecting and working really hard and focusing on. So another part of my role is within the council. So Kildare County Council, like all the councils around the country, have a job to do in certain areas. So they look after some of the roads, they run the libraries, they look after some of the parks, the public parks and things like that. So we in Kildare County Council need to make sure that we're doing the best things for biodiversity. And part of my role is to make sure that the people who are looking after those different things in the county know what the best thing to do is for biodiversity. So my job is to share that information. So if I learn in my role that planting or leaving the dandelions to grow is really important, then my job is to go to the parks, people who look after the parks, and let them know that we need to try and keep as many dandelions in Kildare during the spring and summer as possible. And then if they know that that's the best thing to do, then they can do it. So that's part of my role, is providing advice on biodiversity for people within the County Council. Another big part of my role, and maybe my favourite part, is community engagement and raising awareness. So for this part of my role, I get to go out and about and meet lots of people in the community. So just people who in their day-to-day lives like to work on biodiversity as well. And a lot of these people might just have a small garden that they're looking after, or they might help in the local school, or they might plant up say flower beds in community spaces. And chatting to them about again, what they should plant or what they can plant or what are the best things to plant for nature and for our wildlife is really exciting, because I know that most people, in my experience, want to do the right thing and want to help biodiversity and protect it because they know it's so important. So being able to go and, again, let these people know where to get information, or letting them know what kind of things are the right things to be doing, and then being able to do it is so exciting to see, and it's great being able to help people across the county. In County Kildare, we actually have over 20 different towns who have created their own mini biodiversity action plans. And I'm sure many of you here today in your school have created an action plan for biodiversity on your school grounds. So we really, in Kildare, we're really lucky that we have so many people all the way across the county who have put together plans to protect nature and to help wildlife and to have really lovely habitats for nature all around us. So the favorite part of my job is probably the mix. One of the things, as I said, is meeting people and getting out and about and talking to people and helping everybody that I can help to know what to do for biodiversity and helping them through funding to do some of those things. There's also lots of chances for me to keep learning, and I find that really exciting. I know when you're in school, we think that we learn in school, and when we're out and about doing other things, maybe we're not learning as much, but really in life, I feel I'm always learning, but especially in this job, I learn so much every day from so many different people, and that's very exciting for me because I enjoy learning. Being involved in lots of different projects really excites me too. And getting out of doors, of course, I think excites most people, but definitely because I love nature, I love getting outdoors, and that's another part of my job that I still get to do and I love. So how did I get to be a local authority biodiversity officer? How did I get to become biodiversity officer of Kildare? Well, after school, when I finished in secondary school, I loved nature and I decided to go and study science. So I was very lucky that I got a place in science, and I enjoyed my time so much studying all the animals. I specialised in zoology, which is the study of animals in particular. But of course, all animals rely on plants to survive. So I learned a little bit about all of those things too. My early jobs, the first job I did, I didn't even get paid for. I went to a bird observatory in very north of Scotland, on an island called North Ronaldsay, which is one of the Orkney Islands off the very north coast of Scotland. And I did a swap. So basically, they had a bed and breakfast. And I said, well, I'll work for your bed and breakfast if you let me help you with bird stuff. And I'll learn doing all the bird stuff. And so they let me help with looking at birds. We were ringing birds, putting rings on their legs. And so I had a month there, and that was a fantastic experience. I didn't get paid for it, but what I got was lots of information and a really cool, lots of cool experiences. I worked in Photo Wildlife Park for kind of a summer, and then I worked in Dublin Zoo for a year. And each time I got one job, that job helped me to get the next job. And in fact, then Dublin Zoo and FOTA were looking to pay somebody to go and study this funny bird called a chough. And I had already said I was really interested to study the chough. And then it turned out that they were looking to pay somebody to do it. And I said, pick me. And they did. So I was able then to go off for a few years and do nothing else except walk the hills and mountains and coastline of Cork and Kerry and watch these birds. And it was an amazing experience for a few years to go and do that and figure out what they were feeding and how they were feeding and where they were nesting and how they were nesting and how many chicks they were having. So I got to learn so much about this rare crow all around the southwest coast of Ireland. And that was a really, really amazing experience. And I learned loads. Then when I finished that, I went back and I started working again in education. So a bit like the role I had in Dublin Zoo and FOTA, but this time I was working in green schools in Claire's job now. So myself and Claire used to work together before I moved here. And that was also a lovely role, a really, really nice job, because I was able to bring everything that I'd learned in all my other jobs to that job. And so when I look at all the jobs that I've had over the last few years since I left school, or since I left school, when I went to college and studied zoology, and then I worked in Dublin Zoo, I learned different things, and all of those things now came together to help me be really good at being a biodiversity officer. So when I went into college, I learned about zoology and lots of other science stuff. Then when I did my early jobs, I learned about communication and having to talk to people and explaining stuff around science and preparing workshops and all those kind of things. Then when I did my research, I learned about field work and long-term planning and how to spend money over a few years to make sure that my project worked. And then in green schools, I worked on, I suppose, teamwork was something I really got good at. Running events online was something I learned. And again, kind of designing big programs that have to run for a few years. And all of those parts now make me a biodiversity officer. I can bring all of those different things that I've learned over the years to being a biodiversity officer. Finally, then, things I've learned that I think are important for anybody when they're working their way. If you decide you want to do a particular job and you really want to get there and you're not sure how to get there, there's a few things I've learned. One is to not be shy. Even if you feel shy, just put it to the side for a little bit and go and talk to the people that already have a job that you like. Because I have found that people are really kind and really helpful. And if you give them a call or just talk to them when you see them out and about doing their job, they'll be more than happy to help you out and to give you advice. Go to events and talks. There's so many lovely opportunities. Like I was saying with Biodiversity Week this week, there's wonderful nature events, art events, but all around biodiversity. So get out and about and see what opportunities you can learn at. The other thing, I suppose, things that I learned a long time ago when I was in college or on my first few jobs, I still use those every day. So I'd say there's things in school that I learned that I still use today. So everything counts. So even if you're in school and you're studying maybe Irish, you mightn't like Irish. Irish is really helpful for understanding different things about even wildlife. So everything might help you. So don't be afraid to keep learning, even if you're learning something about something you think you're not that interested in, it'll actually probably help you in your job later on. And then the other thing I would say is, if you are really interested in a particular area, or more so, if you're really interested in 2 or 3 different areas, don't be afraid to follow one of them, because the other ones can come back in later on. So for example, somebody in my zoology class was really, really interested in maths, and he went off and studied maths. And then he was able to look at populations of living things. And he's one of the best scientists I know, because he went off and studied maths, even though he loved zoology and the animals, but then being able to put them together, he's become one of the most brilliant, I suppose, biology scientists ever, because he's able to put the 2 things together later on. So always follow what you're interested in, and don't be worrying about not following something that you're particularly interested in, because you can always bring that back in a few years' time. So there are all the things. I hope that makes sense. And that's my contact details. And I'm happy to take questions now, or is it at the end, Claire, we're doing questions?
We'll hold on to the end if that's
Yeah,
okay.
perfect.
Thanks, Meabh. That was great, and great to have you back. I can't believe it's been a year since you've been gone, a bit more even, I think. So I'm going to hand over now to Elaine, and yeah, you should be able to share your screen now, Elaine.
Okay. Okay, are you looking at the full slide, or are you looking at the presenter view there?
The presenter view at the moment.
Better?
Yep, perfect.
All right, yo. Hi everyone, thanks for having me. My name is Elaine O'Riordan. I'm going to talk to you today a bit about, it's going to follow on very nicely from Maeve's talk about a career in zoology. And actually it's kind of the back to front of Maeve's talk, because I used to be a biodiversity officer and now I work in zoology. So we've kind of gone in opposite directions. We passed each other on the road there, I think, in our career paths. So I'm sure you've probably got an idea when you hear the word zoo, but zoology is basically the study of animals, and it's the study of all different types of animals. And it's a job I've been working. I work in the University of Galway and I work in the zoology department here, and I've been at this now for about 6 or 7 years. When I was in college, I studied marine biology, which included zoology. And then I went and worked at a few different jobs over the years, including I was a biodiversity officer in Galway for 12 years. And now I am back. This job came up in zoology and I couldn't say no. So it's a really great job. So I suppose when people hear, oh, you're a zoologist, this is what they think I do, that I'm out there working in a zoo or training animals, maybe a bit of a circus kind of a job, but it's actually not like that. Zoology is a huge range of subjects. People think of the big, cuddly, floofy animals all the time, the lions and the tigers and the giraffes and stuff like that. But zoology is a lot more than that. We're talking about everything from tiny microscopic little creatures, little worms and little insects and jellyfish and bugs and stuff. They're probably the most numerous animals in the world. So we have people here in the college working on everything from spiders to honeybees and snakes and squirrels, and we have some people who actually just work with computers all the time, and they model, and they do, as Meabh was saying there, they do maths, just trying to figure out how animals evolved. So it's a huge field. So what do? I do a little bit of everything. I'm really lucky in the job I do. So I do a bit of teaching. I'm not a lecturer, so we have lecturers here on staff, and they do most of the teaching, the classes, So everybody that we teach is studying science here in the University of Galway. So some people just do a little bit of zoology, and then they might do botany, look at plants, or they might do physics or chemistry, all different science subjects. And some of our students then, particularly the older students, when they're coming into the 3rd and 4th year of their studies in Galway, they will kind of specialize in zoology. So those are the students that I work with usually. But I do a lot of my teaching is, rather than being in a classroom just talking and stuff, a lot of my work is practical work. So showing students how to do things. So I teach some of the first year biology students about the basics, introduction to zoology. But again, the best part of my work is that I do get to work outside a lot. So a lot of our teaching is outside, and we take our students out into the fields to learn how to study animals. So we have some students here. Actually, these slides are back to front because these students are out here, and we did surveys looking for insects. So we had big nets, and we were sweeping the insects off of the grass, and we were sucking them off of leaves, and we were beating them off of trees. So we captured all the insects, and then we went back into the lab and we looked at the animals and we identified them. So a lot of my work is very practically teaching students the skills how to survey animals. A lot of my own work is very much it's ecology, kind of the ecology of animals. So where they live, what they eat, and how they interact with the world around them. So that's the kind of study of ecology. So a lot of my work is very much kind of ecology sort of work. And as I said, we get to work outside a lot, teach students how to use the equipment, to think about how they plan when they're going to do their work. And when the zoology students get into 4th year, into the final year of their studies, they have to do a big project and write a huge big report on it. So a lot of my work, I have about 10 students every year, and I take them and show them how to do and help them to do their projects. So it could be anything from these little bankfuls here. So we have students doing anything from spiders and slugs and snails and puppy dogs' tails, students studying birds, squirrels, grasshoppers, just loads of different things. So it's great fun. You can't get bored in this job because you're doing something different every day. And as I said, it's lovely to get outside. Not so much fun in the rain and stuff. And sometimes you do find yourself in kind of some fairly loopy situations. This is us here. We take our fourth year students to Morocco for a week to study zoology every year. Now, I don't get to go every year, but I got to go this year. But you do find yourself some days going, is this really a job for a grown woman to do? Or our colleague Michelle is here. We're here, me and Colin, we study mammals a lot. So we're standing at the edge here with our snake hooks. Michelle is in there, rolled up his pants. He's chasing a snake in and around in the water there that he wants to catch to show the students. So it is great crack. We have loads of fun, but it's serious stuff as well. And sometimes you do find yourself saying, this is a bit of a mad day at work today. Sometimes it's like being in Hogwarts, I'll be honest with you. Some of the work is really not very glamorous. My own mother took this picture of me. There is a long history of me dragging friends and family out to help me. So I happened to be down visiting my family in Cork, and I said, I need to get a sample of some mussels for one of my students. So we wandered on down the marina, and yeah, this is me hanging over the edge, picking off the mussels and stuff like that, and collecting them in a bucket and to bring back to my students, because I had students who were studying mussels and the little worms and the parasites that are in there. So a lot of my work is actually helping other people doing their research, so it never gets boring. And we have people doing research on all sorts. Let me show you some cool photographs here. Here's my pointer. So here is one of the things. We've some of the researchers here study scorpions, so we got to go collecting scorpions last time we were in Morocco, which was pretty exciting. They glow in the dark if you put a UV light on them. One of my own personal interests is bats. I was out last night doing a bat walk, and I'm going out tonight doing a bat walk. So I've had students studying bats here on the campus. So I love doing bat stuff. I love bats, love them. And yeah, if you get a chance to listen to the bat talk that one of the rangers did there earlier on in the week, I'd recommend it, because I saw the slides and they look awesome. So I do love bats. And again, we do have students here who study reptiles. Of course, we don't have too many exciting reptiles here in Ireland, but we do have some live animals that we do keep here in captivity in the college. So we do get to use live animals to help teach the students as well about animals and about caring for animals and about how they work. And then, of course, the most exciting work of it all is the desk work. There's always going to be desk work now, and I do spend quite a lot of time at my desk correcting projects, reading projects, helping students to learn how to write reports, because it's really important, I suppose, that students do have to write up their project. They have to write a report at the end, and they have to kind of be able to analyze their data. It's all very well going out and counting spiders or cutting up mussels to see what lives inside them, but you do have to be able to analyze the results so that you can tell people about them. So there is a lot of number crunching and a lot of maths and sums. The good thing is that I work in the zoology department and people love animals, so I can bring my dog to work sometimes, and she gets very, very bored with the desk work. So there she is, asleep under my desk while I'm busy doing my reading and reporting. So during the year, between kind of September and April, when the students are in, a lot of my work is working directly with students. And I love that. I love the crack of working with young people, because they're always enthusiastic. Well, they're not always enthusiastic. You get the whole range. Some people love it. Some people are just, oh no, you want me to touch that? But generally, working with young people is nice because they're enthusiastic and they're interested, and working with colleagues here, you know, that are interested in their jobs and want to do fun things and come up with ideas for interesting projects. That's all a really nice. There's a nice buzz around that kind of work, so I do enjoy that. But in the rest of the year, so now at the moment, what I'm doing is my own research, because I am working part-time on a project looking at hedgehogs. So hedgehogs are my particular interest at the moment. So I'm about 4 or 5 years into a 7-year project looking at hedgehogs in Ireland. So why hedgehogs? Why not? I don't know why. They come out at night. They're very hard to find. They stink. They're covered in fleas, but I just adore them. I adore them. I like crotchety animals, and that's why I think I like the hedgehogs. So they are very prickly little animals. I'll just give you a very brief background on them. Everybody knows what a hedgehog looks like because they're covered in these spines, anywhere between 3,000 and 5,000 kind of spines all over their bodies. They're a mammal. They're well known because you might find them in a garden, and quite often they will roll up into a little ball here. So they've got a very good defense mechanism. They don't like to be handled very much, and it's quite hard to handle them. So this is a job that you need welding gloves. I will use welding gloves when I'm handling these guys. What do hedgehogs eat? They come out at night, so they're nocturnal animals, and they sleep all day. They have little sharp little teeth because they eat a lot of sort of insects, millipedes, caterpillars, spiders, slugs and snails and worms, and all of those tasty treats. They'll also come into people's gardens, and they'll steal the cat's foods and things like that as well. They'll nibble a little bit of fruit, but their digestive system doesn't cope very well with fruit. So I wouldn't give fruit or milk or bread if you do have hedgehogs coming into your garden, because the last thing you want is a scuttery hedgehog in your garden. I did mention that they're quite sneaky. So what's happening at this time? In the winter, the hedgehog work suits me because in the winter they're all asleep. So when I'm teaching the students, the hedgehogs are hibernating, but then in the springtime, we all wake up and start getting busy. The babies are born in the summertime. So around about now, the breeding season is starting. The mommy hedgehogs are pregnant for about just over a month, and then the little baby hedgehogs are born about 4 or 6 in a litter, and the females raise them alone, so they don't live in family groups with the mom and a dad and the babies. It's just the mom and dad just meet to breed, and then they have the babies and the mom looks after them by herself. This is what a brand new newborn baby hedgehog looks like. I have a friend, once you start working with hedgehogs, you kind of get drawn into all sorts of other things. So I am good friends now with a lady who runs a hedgehog hospital for sick and injured hedgehogs. So she gives me some great photographs. So that's a brand new baby hedgehog. When they're born, the spines are there, but they're stuck under the skin, so they don't hurt the mom while they're being born. But within a few hours, they start poking out. And then by the time the hedgehogs are about 11 days old, they can roll into a ball. And this is why I study hedgehogs, because even though they're stinky and spiky, they're gorgeous. They're awfully cute. And I suppose the other thing about them is that there's no one else studying hedgehogs in Ireland. So, and there's only been one person ever has done a big study on hedgehogs in Ireland. So we have a lot to learn about them. So that's why I'm studying them. So what am I studying? What exactly am I saying when I'm doing research on hedgehogs? I'm asking these questions. Where do the hedgehogs live? So we kind of know they live in, we know the kind of habitats they live in, but again, we don't know what the numbers are like. And we do know that from other countries in Europe, and particularly in England and places, that the numbers of hedgehogs have been dropping a lot lately. They don't like it when we change the countryside around too much. They like to have small little farms, lots of hedges, lots of rough grass and bushes in places. They don't like these huge, big fields. They don't like it when the hedges are taken away. So we want to know where are the hedgehogs in Ireland, where do they live? And particularly in gardens. Gardens are very important habitats for hedgehogs. We're finding that more and more hedgehogs like to live in gardens because there's nice habitat there. There's lots of bugs and grubs and nice things to eat, bushes and sheds for sleeping under. And also we're looking at what kind of farms do they like. And one of the things I want to do as well down along the line is look at where did hedgehogs come from, because we know that hedgehogs only came to Ireland around about the 12th century. So they think the Normans brought the hedgehogs to Ireland. So ultimately, maybe starting this year or next year, we're going to take little samples of hedgehogs and test their DNA and then compare the DNA of Irish hedgehogs to hedgehogs in France and in England and seeing who are they related to? So who brought it? Was it the Normans, or did they come from England or Wales, or where did they come from? So that's down the line. At the moment, a lot of my project, hedgehogs are hard to study. Okay, they come out at night. They don't hang out in large groups, so they're kind of hard to find. So a good way to actually find hedgehogs is to ask other people to help you. And that's what we call citizen science, is when you ask the ordinary people, public, people at home and in gardens and people at schools and students, can you help me to survey for hedgehogs? And one of the ways that we survey for hedgehogs, because you could be out walking every night for a week and never see a hedgehog, but one of the best ways to do it is to let the hedgehogs come to you. So I use this little thing called a hedgehog tunnel, which is kind of a triangular made of plastic, and this board that pulls out, and we put some paper and some ink and some cat food in there. They do like cat food. And we put that in the gardens, and if the hedgehogs come in at night to eat the food, they leave little inky footprints, and that way we can tell if it's hedgehogs or not. Here's a little video of that one of my volunteers sent me. So I have volunteers all over the country that do this for me. And they also record, if people see hedgehogs, they can go on to the Biodiversity Ireland website and they can just drop a pin on the map and tell me where they find a hedgehog. Look at this, there's a little snail stuck onto the side of the thing there, and and then he does a big sneeze. And then he realizes he's after getting ink all over his nose. And you look at these little inky little paws on him as well. So that is a really good way to survey hedgehogs, because it's fairly cheap. You're not using very expensive equipment. Now, I do also use cameras, but that's a very expensive way to study hedgehogs. So this summer, for example, what I will be doing is I'll be going into people's gardens. I'll ask people to do a survey and tell me if they've got hedgehogs or not. And then I'll put cameras up in their gardens that will see if hedgehogs or other wild animals go past. And I'll put footprint tunnels there, and I'll see are hedgehogs visiting people's gardens, and that way we kind of learn what kind of gardens do they like, what kind of gardens don't they like. Is there more hedgehogs in gardens than there is in the surrounding kind of countryside or in the green areas in the States and stuff? So that's the kind of work I'm doing at the moment. It's great fun. I have a student that's going to help me out this summer, and we hope that we're going to go out at night as well, and we're going to catch some hedgehogs and put tags on them and see if we can find them again. So that will help us count them. So when people do surveys, or when people tell me they got hedgehogs, I do a big hedgehog map of Ireland. That one is actually a couple of years older now, but it gets better every year. I'm getting more and more people telling me where the hedgehogs are. Where the hedgehogs aren't, you can see they don't really like to live up in the mountains in Donegal or in Kerry and places like that, but there's lots of hedgehogs everywhere, loads of sightings around towns and stuff, because that's where the people are as well. So the interesting fun stuff, as I said, I have to wear gloves a lot when I'm working. People love hedgehogs, so it's a nice kind of project, and because I'm working with people a lot, I do get to meet with fun people, and as I said, you get to do fun stuff. This is a hedgehog that actually lives in a rescue, and I needed to take pictures to show people how to work footprint tunnels. Then I had to give the hedgehog a pedicure because her nails were too long. So that's the kind of crazy stuff that you sometimes end up doing that you don't plan to do when you set out to do a day's work. As I said, hedgehogs do kind of take over your life. I have hedgehogs in my own garden. So then I ended up taking them, I'm putting tags in them. And sometimes my family are not really pleased with me when they come in and find that there's a hedgehog in a mixing bowl on the kitchen table when they thought I was making cake. Or when they go to get a pair of socks and realize that the sick hedgehog I was minding in the utility room has escaped and is now asleep in the sock basket in the utility room. So I don't make myself too popular. Some of the really, it's not all fun and games. When you go out to pick up the hedgehog tunnels in the morning, quite often the slugs have got there before you. And oh my God, I do love animals, most animals, but slugs now, I have a really hard time with slugs. So they get into the hedgehog tunnels and it's wet and it's mucky and they eat the cat food and you got to pick them off, and that's pretty gross. Anybody who works in zoology is going to have to deal with poo, because a lot of animals are hard to find except when you find the poo. So I get a lot of pictures of poo emailed to me. I take a lot of pictures of poo. When I find poo, I tend to get a big stick and go at it and try and see who made it. So if you want to be a zoologist, that's something that you might have to get to grips with, slugs and poo and all of those sort of things. So I've given you kind of a I think some of the highlights and lowlights of working in zoology. And I look forward to your questions at the end if you have any. So thank you very much for your attention and enjoy the rest of your biodiversity week.
That was great, Elaine. Thanks a million. Really interesting, and follows on nicely from our webinar on Tuesday about monitoring biodiversity. So yeah, it's great to see how it's working for the hedgehogs. So if you wouldn't mind just stop sharing your screen there, Elaine, I'm going to hand over to Jennifer. Okay, there, Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. How are you? I'm just going to share my presentation. So I am going to okay, hopefully everyone can see that.
Yep, perfect.
Okay, cool. So my name's Jennifer and I am from County Monaghan, and I'm living back in County Monaghan after being away for some years. I am an environmental consultant and I work in an office in County Monaghan, but my colleagues and me are based all around the country. And then sometimes we meet up and we do field surveys together. So we're doing a lot of those this summer. That's my boss, Billy, and he was just in the middle of a stream the other day collecting some samples of invertebrates, and I was helping him, so I just took a photo. My current role is as an environmental consultant. So environmental science and ecology are part of my job. So I did environmental science at college, but I've always had an interest in ecology as well, which is part of the environmental science course that I did, but it wasn't specifically what I qualified in. So I'm quite lucky in that I get to do both. So environmental science, what they say, it's sort of what it means is that it's the study of interactions between the physical, chemical, and biological components of nature. And then ecology is the study of the relationships between plants, animals, people, and their environment, and then the balances between these relationships. So they sound quite similar, but when you're working in the field, there is a bit of a difference. So on the environmental side, it's more kind of about water and soil and air, and sort of how what we do as humans can have an influence on that, whether good or bad. And then ecology is sort of looking out for, like what Elaine was saying, we also look for a lot of animal poo. We check out what mammals might be around, what birds, what tree and shrub species. So what the relationship is between all of those and how they might be affected by certain projects. So what I do on a daily basis can be very different. It's all based mainly outdoors, but I do have quite a bit of desk work as well. So this was me yesterday, actually, the bottom right photo in the distance with the blue hat. We were out in what's called the Commons of Lloyd in County Meath, and we were doing a grassland survey, and we were basically taking all the species that were in the area, the floral species, and seeing how they compared to the previous years. So that's an ongoing one that we're doing. So we would do mostly field surveys to kind of ground truth or see what's on the ground. And then our desktop studies will back that up as well. So we'll have to do some online research, and we'll do some mapping and just show in our reports what we have found and what the potential threats are for a certain project, for example. So what we call them are impact assessments. So the developments that we would work on would be, for example, on road projects, greenways, like for cycling and walking, and also things like housing estates and commercial properties. So before anybody goes to work on a development, they have lots of things to think about. And one of those things is how it's going to affect the local environment and the local ecology. Like, is there badgers in the area? Are there pine martens? Will it be have to take down mature trees? Will it be removing hedgerows? Will they affect bird life? So we have to make sure that the least amount of impact is done when people are building roadways or whatever it is that they're doing, because humans can have a lot of negative impact on ecology, and we all know that because unfortunately we have a biodiversity crisis, and I'm sure everybody's heard about that in the news. But what we try to do is try to prevent some of that from happening at least. I also do biodiversity action plans for towns and villages. So I would meet with community groups quite a lot. A lot of that would be with Tidy Towns groups. So you probably have a Tidy Towns committee in your local village or town. And often these people they're not only into making their village or town clean and tidy and litter free and all of that. It's not just about that now. People realize that we all have to make differences in our daily work, whether it be planting some pollinator friendly flowers like that bees will like, whether it be sort of not using pesticides because they're very harmful to insects, obviously. It could be about planting trees or maintaining hedgerows in a certain way that means that they're not too cut, and that they will support bird life and bees and everything. So we put plans in place, and then we basically we describe them, and we meet with the towns and village communities, and we'll just tell them what we're doing and what we suggest, and hopefully it will help to support biodiversity. And if all towns and villages basically did that across the country, then I think we would be doing a lot for nature. So when, why, and how? When did I decide to do what I'm doing? When I was doing my Leaving Cert, I was really confused about what course to choose. So I know some of you guys are a long way away from doing your Leaving Cert, but it will come around. And in the meantime, you'll be thinking about what you like to do. So I suppose why I thought of environmental science was I was worried about the environment and I was concerned about nature. And I felt that maybe a lot of people around me didn't really care about it so much. It wasn't top of their agenda. And I thought, that's a bit strange because there's a lot of bad things happening in the world, like, climate change and flooding, and, our nature is suffering because of a lot of what humans are doing. And I thought, maybe what could I do? I could maybe study this and see if I can get a job eventually that would help to at least prevent some of that from happening. And I was just genuinely interested in it. I love being out in the countryside and outdoors. And the subjects I like to do were things like geography and biology. So I was confused about what I was going to do. And for a long time, I was crazy about being a vet because I loved animals. But over time, I realized maybe that's not for me. It would be very difficult to get in. I would have to get the highest points in the country. There was a lot of competition. And I did some experience in it as well. And I realized that not all the vets I spoke to were that happy because it's not, as romantic as people show on TV shows sometimes. But I still knew I was interested in being outside and in animals and nature. So I visited a guidance counselor who worked outside my school because the lady in my school, I didn't find that she really gave me enough guidance. So I visited this other lady and she helped me to consider my options. And we did like an online aptitude test, and she sort of discovered like what I liked and what I didn't like. And then eventually it came around to courses I had never thought about before. And one of those was environmental science. And I studied that in University of Ireland, Galway. So to get there, I studied biology and chemistry for my leaving cert. So they were two of my subjects. And I also kept up art and French because it wasn't just all about science for me. I also loved being creative, and I think that's still part of it. Like I still love to do art sometimes, and a lot of it's based in nature. So I love to draw birds, and I just love the colors in nature, and that really kind of inspires me every day. Um, I did a course in environmental science in the University of Galway, and then some years later, I did a master's in sustainable development, and that was in what is now the TU Dublin, Technological University of Dublin. So there's a lot in that, and environment and sustainability cover lots of different areas. So there's so much choice. And nowadays, I think it's a little bit easier to get a job in the field than when I started, because when I started, people were like, well, what job are you going to get out of that? What are you going to do? And how are you going to make money? And there were no roles in it. And it was quite difficult when I came out of college, because the country was in a little bit of a state of recession and everybody was going abroad. But now it's a little bit different, I'd like to think, and there are a lot more roles and opportunities for people, which is great. I also read a lot about what was going on, and I still do. Like I kept up to date, whether it was like watching the news or reading the papers, or now it's like, you know, sometimes I keep up to date on social media and stuff, but I kind of try to keep to, you know, sources of information that are reliable, you know, people that know what they're talking about. Work experience, I did a bit of that when I was in school, and then when I was in college, I worked with the county council for a while, again unpaid, and the Environmental Protection Agency. I did a little bit of lab work there for a summer, and I realized lab work wasn't really for me. Now it did still give me good opportunities, and made me learn about water testing and the different levels of things that you should look out for. But I did realize then that probably lab work wasn't for me. So I tried different jobs and working in different companies for a few years, and it took me a while, and I traveled and I lived in different countries, which was also very helpful for experience. And then I came home and I finally found a job I like, which has a balance of pretty much everything. And it eventually worked out for me. So what do I like most about my job? I like the outdoors, especially on a lovely sunny day when I'm by the coast or in a lovely habitat, like on the right-hand side, that's down in County Clare. And we had a lovely project down there a couple of years ago doing a biodiversity action plan for Shannon Airport. And we spent many days out sort of half in the wilderness, looking at different habitats and by the coast, and it was just really nice by the local estuary. And then that's me and some of my colleagues, and we all have similar interests, and we enjoy what we do, and we have a passion for nature. So that's something I really enjoy. What I don't like so much is, well, what Elaine would have said as well, is the report writing side and some of the desk work, and that it's not really my favorite thing to do. But once I get started and I get into it, and sometimes I get a little bit of help from my colleagues, it doesn't seem so bad anymore. Favorite memory, I sort of have too many to think of at this stage. I've worked in my current role for 3 years now, and some days it can be raining and mucky and not so nice. But when we get nice days, dry, sunny days, and you're out in a nice place, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, to be honest. And we do get to work in different places around the country, and we're learning new things every day. So that's what I really like. So yeah, that's it really. Thanks very much. And if you have any questions, you can ask me after this.
That's great. Thanks, Jennifer. Really interesting. And it's great to have the variety of our different speakers. So I know we've gone kind of way over time, guys. So we might just have one or two if people have any. I'll just kick off with one and give people a chance to use the chat. When would you say, guys, how young were you when you decided that this was something that you wanted to work in? Would you have still been in primary school like many people watching are, or was it a bit later? For anybody who wants to answer that.
I can if you want.
Yep.
I think it was probably a lot later than what I initially thought. I think I kind of went on a rocky path of what I wanted to do, but I always knew it would be something to do with maybe animals and being outdoors. And for a long time I did have to work in offices and stuff, which I didn't like, but I eventually decided, yeah, I'm going to go for something that, I suppose then it was probably not till my 20s that I figured it out, but I was along that path all the time.
Well, thanks, Jennifer. What about you,
Yeah,
Elaine?
I think so. I think when I was small, I always had a notion I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to be a nurse for years and years and years. A lot of women in my family were nurses, and I just kind of thought, oh, that's what I want to do. But I always loved animals. I always loved nature. And when we were small, we used to be watching those National Geographic documentaries and stuff like that. But the idea of going to college and studying zoology was really not on the radar. It was abstract, I suppose. And it wasn't until I actually I kind of nearly fell into it, really. I suppose I ended up going and studying marine biology on a notion when I was 18. That's what I put down for college. And yeah, and I guess it stuck.
Yeah, I probably would be a bit of the same, as in I was always interested in being outdoors. I love being outdoors. I loved pets. I did think about veterinary as well, because it's one of those easy jobs that you see. It's like a profession that is associated with animals. So it seems like a job that would fit somebody who loves animals. But again, I suppose it didn't, when it came to it, the points are really high, it's really competitive. And I went off the idea and I decided to study science. I wouldn't have got the points anyway. I decided to study science, and then once I was in the science degree, I began to see all the different options for biology, and then I began to realize, zoology is what really suits me and what fits. It is still daunting I felt at the time, picking a choice like that, because when you come out of college, then you don't fit into a box. Like, you don't work in a vet's office, you don't work in a hospital, you don't work in a school, so you're not sure where you're going to work when you qualify. So I do think it takes a lot of time to figure out what roles are available to you as a zoologist. But yeah, so it wasn't clear, and I think having lots of different experiences, throughout, will bring you to a role that suits you and that you like in the end.
Brilliant. Yeah. So, guys, if you don't know what you want to do yet, don't worry. That's totally normal. You'll work it out eventually. Okay. So we've gone way over. So I think what we'll do is we'll wrap it up there, and say thanks very much to everybody for coming, and especially to Meabh, Elaine, and Jennifer for speaking. We really appreciate it. So thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of Biodiversity Week. Hopefully you can get outside and enjoy the outdoors a little bit. So it's everybody's favorite thing to do as part of their role. So hopefully it's something you enjoy in school as well. Okay, bye everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.